Am I the a-hole for refusing to sell the apartment I bought with my stripper money after my boyfriend got me pregnant? For several years, I was a stripper. I have no shame about what I did and only quit when I got a better job offer. When I first started in the industry, I was overwhelmed by the quick cash, but I quickly realized how easy it is to let that money slip through your fingers. In the time I worked as a stripper, I intentionally lived as cheaply as possible because my coworkers all told me that they were able to buy their own places on their income, so long as they saved like crazy. I took their advice completely to heart. While other girls were buying designer bags and leasing luxury cars, I moved into a shitty little studio flat with peeling wallpaper and drafty windows. I spent years living off ramen, skipping social outings, and wearing old, worn-out clothes until they practically fell apart. Every single dollar I earned from late-night shifts, private dances, and exhausting weekend grinds went directly into a high-yield savings account. I kept my head down, ignored the stigma, and focused entirely on the end goal. Before I retired, I managed to achieve what felt like an impossible dream. I outright buy myself a 3-bedroom flat. There is no mortgage, no bank looming over me, and no landlord to answer to. It is entirely mine. After moving in, I rented out the other rooms for a while to help build back my savings, but I eventually got sick of having roommates and dealing with other people's clutter in my space. So now, I have them up online for shorter stays, but not to rent long-term. It gives me a steady side income while allowing me to maintain my privacy when I want it. I met this guy about 18 months ago, and we've been together since. Our relationship developed naturally, and for a long time, things felt incredibly stable and comfortable. He knows about my employment history. I was completely transparent with him early on because I wanted to make sure we were on the same page and that he respected my past. At the time, he said that he has no issue with it. He acted completely mature, telling me he admired my work ethic and financial discipline. Though, as things started getting more serious, he did ask me to tell his family the white lie I occasionally use on my CV and stuff, which is that I was a waitress. To be fair, I kind of was a waitress considering the amount of food and drink hospitality involved in club work, so I didn't see the harm in keeping the peace with his conservative parents. I agreed to the compromise, thinking it was just a minor protective measure for our relationship. A month ago, our lives completely shifted when we found out that I'm 2 months pregnant. The discovery was a shock, but after the initial panic subsided, we sat down to talk about our future. He says this is great news, and we should move in together to prepare for the baby. When he brought it up, I assumed he'd be moving into my place. It felt like the only logical, practical choice. He currently rents his flat, which is a far smaller 1-bedroom place where you can barely turn around without bumping into furniture, while I own mine completely free and clear. My flat is spacious, and most importantly, I have room for a baby's room while he doesn't even have space for a proper crib in his current layout. Also, on a deeper level, I really don't want to leave my flat. It's my flat, I love it, and I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into securing it. I could easily see myself living here for the rest of my life. I don't want to lose the security of owning a flat and have to go back to paying rent or a mortgage each month just to satisfy someone else's timeline. Having that absolute housing security means everything to me, especially now that I am bringing a child into the world. However, during a conversation in my living room, the mood completely shifted. He looked around the room, hesitated, and then said that he didn't want to move into my place. Instead, he said I should sell it and we buy a place together from scratch. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I calmly told him that I like my place. It means a lot to me that I was able to buy it, and it represents years of working my arse off scrimping and saving while living in your poverty to secure my future. He nodded along, but his expression remained stubborn. He then said that he understands all of that, but we should be living together by the time the baby comes, and he simply didn't want to live in my flat. I asked him why not, genuinely trying to understand his logic. It's a great flat, it's central to everything, it's spacious, it's got room for all his stuff, there's a daycare in the building run and owned by another tenant, and a school a 5-minute walk away. The list of benefits goes on, making it the absolute perfect environment to raise a newborn. I laid all these points out clearly, expecting him to see reason. He avoided my gaze for a moment, sighed heavily, and then said that he didn't want to live in a flat that was bought with stripper money. That really pissed me off. It felt like a physical slap to the face. All the respect he claimed to have for my past vanished in a single second. I stood up and told him no fucking way am I selling my flat, and that he never had an issue with my stripper money paying for this flat before now. He was perfectly happy to sit on my furniture, eat the food kept in my fridge, and enjoy the space when it benefited him, but suddenly it was too dirty for him to live in permanently. I said I wasn't giving up the security of owning a home for someone who tries to make me feel ashamed about something I don't feel ashamed of. He looked defensive and said that his point is if I sold the flat, then we could get a new place with the money from the sale, using it as a massive down payment or buying something else outright. I looked at him, completely baffled by his logic, and said, "Wouldn't that still be stripper money?" He scoffed, waved his hand, and said, "That's different." I pressed him on it, my voice rising as I asked how exactly that was different. If the physical brick and mortar of my current home is tainted in his eyes, how does liquidating it into a bank account suddenly wash the money clean? He couldn't give me a straight answer. He just got flustered, grabbed his jacket, and then said he was going back to his place because I can't talk to you when you're in this state. He completely shut down the conversation, treating my justified anger as if I were just having an emotional meltdown. He's gone back to his flat now, and he's texted me saying I'm overreacting and irrational, and that I need to think of this realistically rather than emotionally. In his messages, he claims he wouldn't feel right raising a child in my flat knowing how I purchased it, and that selling and moving is the best idea for all of us as a new family. Then, he finally let his real insecurity slip. He mentioned the fact that he isn't on the deed because it's my place, and he claimed it would never feel like our place because of this. He wants his name on a property, but instead of building up his own capital to match mine, he expects me to liquidate my entire life's achievement so he can get a 50% stake in a new home off my back. After reading his texts over and over, I started spiraling. I feel I might be the arse because I get why he might feel like it's just my place, and I know that entering parenthood requires compromise. I worry that I'm being too rigid in a time we need to work together to build a life for our future child. Plus, I spoke to my sister to get an outside perspective, and she completely sided with him. She told me I was being stubborn and that a man needs to feel like the king of his castle, and by refusing to move, I am damaging his pride. So, now that 2 out of 3 people think I'm in the wrong here, I am genuinely questioning myself. Am I the a-hole? Update. First off, I dumped him. That conversation happened the day after my original post blew up. I had spent hours reading comments from people pointing out things that honestly never even crossed my mind before. A lot of people said the issue was never really about the flat itself, but about access and control. At first I thought everyone was being dramatic, because outside of this argument, he had always seemed fairly reasonable. Then I sat down with him to properly talk everything through, and it became painfully obvious that the comments were right. I started the conversation calmly. I even told him that I had thought about compromise. I said that if the issue was truly about wanting a shared home and shared ownership, then maybe we could look into selling eventually under the condition that we both contributed equally to the purchase of the new place. I pointed out that if we were building a future together, then fairness mattered. The second I said he would need to contribute 50% financially, his entire attitude changed. He got angry almost immediately. Not emotional, not hurt, just angry. Suddenly the conversation stopped being about family or the baby and became about how I was being selfish, distrustful, and difficult. He started talking about how couples are supposed to support each other and how my refusal to combine assets showed I didn't really see him as a partner. At one point, I asked him directly why he was comfortable benefiting from the money, if the source of the money supposedly bothered him so much. He had absolutely no answer for that. The more he talked, the worse it got. Eventually, he admitted that one of the major reasons he wanted me to sell the flat was because his startup was struggling badly. I knew the business wasn't doing brilliantly, but I had no idea how serious things actually were. According to him, investors had backed out recently, and he was running out of options. He said that if we sold my flat and bought another place together, we could free up enough money to both secure a new home and inject money into his company. So basically, the flat he claimed made him uncomfortable morally was suddenly acceptable once he could access the money from it. That was the moment the entire relationship died for me. After that, the conversation spiraled. He started saying that if we weren't together, then he wasn't sure he even wanted to be involved as a parent anymore because he didn't sign up to co-parent separately. Less than a week later, he completely flipped positions and announced that he intended to pursue majority custody. Not because he desperately wanted to raise the baby, not because he thought I would be a bad mother. His actual reasoning, in his own words, was financial. He openly admitted that if he had majority custody, he could avoid paying child support and potentially receive payments from me instead due to my income and assets. Thankfully, several people advised me after my original post to document everything, so I have screenshots, text messages, and recordings of most of these conversations saved in multiple places. I genuinely don't think he realized how insane he sounded while saying all of this. The strangest part is how quickly the mask dropped once he realized I wasn't backing down. During our relationship, he always presented himself as progressive and supportive. He used to brag to friends about how independent and hardworking I was. He told people he admired that I bought my flat outright before 30. Apparently, all of that admiration disappeared the second he realized he couldn't benefit from it the way he wanted. As for the legal side of things, I met with a solicitor earlier this week. The appointment itself was honestly reassuring. I walked in terrified that I was about to lose my home or get dragged into some horrible custody situation, but after going through everything they told me, my ex's expectations were wildly unrealistic, especially given the messages he sent and the things he admitted in writing. Nothing is final yet, obviously, but the current advice is that I have a very strong case if things escalate legally. My intention at this point is to pursue sole custody with supervised visitation if necessary. I never imagined I would be discussing things like custody agreements while barely into my pregnancy, but here we are. The situation with my sister has also gotten worse. After the breakup, she doubled down completely and started pushing me to reconcile with him. Her main argument is that a baby deserves a complete family and that I should be willing to compromise for the sake of stability. I asked her why the compromise always seemed to involve me giving things up while he contributed very little beyond demands, and she brushed the question aside entirely. Then she went behind my back and told our parents about the pregnancy after I specifically asked her not to. I was furious. Part of the reason I hadn't told them yet is because my relationship with them is complicated, and I wanted time to process everything privately before adding family opinions into the mix. Instead, I got a phone call from my mother asking why she had to hear from my sister that she was going to become a grandmother. That caused another massive argument. At this point, I'm barely speaking to my sister. Every conversation turns into her defending my ex or implying that I'm ruining my child's future by refusing to fix the relationship. Meanwhile, she conveniently ignores the fact that he openly tried to manipulate me into selling my home and funding his collapsing business. Outside of all of this chaos, I've mostly been focused on getting myself sorted before the baby comes. I've started reorganizing the flat a bit and turning one of the spare rooms into a nursery. It's weird because this flat used to represent one phase of my life so strongly. I bought it after years of exhausting work, awful customers, long nights, and saving every spare penny while everyone around me spent money as fast as they earned it. Now it suddenly represents something completely different. Security. The amount of relief I feel knowing this place is fully mine cannot even be explained properly. No landlord, no mortgage hanging over me, no partner with legal claim over it, just mine. Every time I think about how close I came to potentially tying this property to someone who clearly viewed me as a financial opportunity, I feel sick. I also want to say thank you to everyone who commented on my first post. When I first posted between my boyfriend and my sister, I was genuinely convinced I was in the wrong. So to have such an overwhelmingly supportive response really helped me realize that I shouldn't doubt myself so much. One comment in particular stuck with me. Someone said that shame only works if you agree to carry it. That honestly hit me harder than I expected. I spent years being perfectly comfortable with my past until someone I loved decided to weaponize it against me for leverage. Looking back, I think part of why I question myself so much is because he framed everything like concern and practicality instead of what it actually was. With all of that realization, plus everything going on right now, I've decided to go to therapy, which I will be starting next week. A few people suggested it, and I think they're probably right. Between the pregnancy, the breakup, the legal stress, and family drama, it feels like the sensible thing to do. All in all, the outcome of this is probably going to be me being a single mother in the flat I own. And honestly, pretty decent outcome. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.